series. Let's move along to the Islanders, who are expected to announce tomorrow that Neil Smith is their new general manager and Ted Nolan their new coach.
We'll talk about two guys that have been out of it for a while, but yet both deserving to get an opportunity. Good move by the New York Islanders. And Neil Smith, he's been out of it since 2000. He was a general manager with the New York Rangers, a very difficult job, to say the least, but he was able to bring them a Stanley Cup back in '94. But since 2000, he hasn't been able to get a sniff of a job. Well, I shouldn't say not a sniff, because he was very close in the running with the Toronto Maple Leafs job. He was also very close in the Anaheim Mighty Ducks job, but he didn't get either one. So it's very good for Neil Smith to get back into it. As far as Teddy Nolan goes, here's a guy that, let's face it, I mean, right from the time that he was the Jack Adams Award winner for being Coach of the Year in the National Hockey League, you felt that he deserved a chance to get back in. But he didn't really take a job. He had some job opportunities. I think what really got Teddy back into the mix was the fact that he showed that he wanted to coach. He went and coached junior hockey, rode the buses this year, and rode the buses all the way to the Memorial Cup final. Didn't win the game. Patrick Waugh's team, as we know, did win that final game, but he still did an excellent job. So I think it showed everybody in the National Hockey League that, okay, he's serious about coaching, real serious, so somebody's going to give him an opportunity, and it appears as though the Islanders have.
I think we both agree they should be back in the game. I don't think either one of us connected them in the same city, though.
No, I didn't connect Neil Smith and Ted Nolan, but when you take a look around the National Hockey League right now, you either go back to hiring right now fired coaches from this year, which oftentimes people say, hey, you know something, maybe they just need a rest for another year, or else you go with somebody that's maybe new, that really wants that challenge. And so if, in fact, all of the speculation is true that Teddy Nolan is, in fact, the new coach of the New York Islanders, there's a press conference tomorrow afternoon that has been called by the Islanders, and we'll see whether or not that is, in fact, but Neil Smith is going to be the general
around the National Hockey League guys as well, coming out of Long Island. The New York Islanders, Nick, expected. In fact, we know that they'll announce Neil Smith as its general manager and Ted Nolan as the head coach.
Well, as Neil Smith, a guy that's been out of the league the last little while and's tried on many occasions, came close in Toronto, struck out, came close in Pittsburgh, struck out, but I think he brings a lot of credibility to the New York Islanders, and I think it's one of those things where he needs to restore the tradition and the history there, and I think he might lean on a few alumni in the area to do that. And as far as Ted Nolan's concerned, bottom line, he's a great bench boss.
And Neil Smith now has to work with the cap. That's the only difference. When he was with the Rangers, Nick, with you, it was unlimited. Let's go buy a championship.
Yeah. Well, don't look for him to stroke. Don't look for him to stroke any checks to Alexei Yashin. I don't think that buyout's coming.
All right, that announcement is coming Thursday from Long Island as the New York Islanders rebuild that franchise and they start in the executive offices. That will be a big part of what we're doing.
The New York Islanders will have a Thursday afternoon news conference where they are reportedly expected to announce Neil Smith as their general manager and Ted Nolan as their head coach. For Nolan, it's his ticket back into the NHL after being out of the league since 1997, when he not only won the Jack Adams Trophy with the Sabres, but his rocky relationship with then Buffalo GM John Muckler ultimately led to his firing. It's been a long road back for Nolan, which included a stop as the head coach and director of hockey operations for the Moncton Wildcats, who appeared in this year's Memorial Cup. As for Neil Smith, he has plenty of general manager experience thanks to his time at the New York Rangers. He shaped the team that captured the franchise's first Stanley Cup in 54 years back in 1994.
Gentlemen, other NHL news, Ted Nolan is getting another shot in the bigs. The New York Islanders have called a media conference Thursday where it's expected Nolan will be named head coach and Neil Smith will be named GM. Nolan coached Moncton in the Q last season, leading them to the Memorial Cup final. Nolan has not coached in the NHL since '97 when he was named Coach of the Year with Buffalo, but turned down a one-year contract extension. Smith has also been away from the NHL for a while. He was GM of the Rangers from '89 to 2000, winning a cup in '94. Former Islander great Pat LaFontaine will also be brought on as a special consultant.
Thanks for joining us. Ted Nolan will now have Buffalo and Long Island on his coaching resume, and he has one of the best to ever play for both of those franchises to thank for it, at least partially. Pat LaFontaine was instrumental in getting the Isles to consider Nolan, who was hired today as head coach on the same day Neil Smith was named the team's general manager.
Being out of the game for last 8 years and have a chance to go to Moncton and Brunswick this year in the Quebec Major Junior League, I just really wanted to find out if I still had that passion for coaching, and I think 5 minutes on the job last season, I felt I did.
I'm just so happy to be back with this logo, with this organization. I'm very passionate about it because I started here, I got my opportunity here, and it's amazing life for me to go full circle.
The Islanders are dipping into their past to fill front office jobs. Bryan Trottier has been named Executive Director of Player Development, while the aforementioned LaFontaine has joined the club as Senior Advisor to the owner.
I'm so excited to be working with these guys, be a part of the Islander organization, and I think it's great that Teddy's coaching again because it makes the NHL a better place.
Wow, what a story Ted Nolan has to tell, though most of us will never hear it. With more on the new coach of the New York Islanders, here are Darren Millar, John Garrett, and Al Strachan.
Brad, thank you very much. Even as Mike Milbury moves up the food chain at the New York Islanders, things remain very interesting. We'll get to Ted Nolan and Neil Smith in just a moment, but Al, how does Pat LaFontaine fit into this picture?
Pat LaFontaine basically is running the organization. The guy who is the owner of it doesn't have his partner anymore. He's in jail following a well-established precedent set by NHL owners. So you got LaFontaine there. Nolan was his coach at Buffalo, and Neil Smith, he knows, was the general manager when Patty played for the Rangers. He was very grateful to Neil Smith to give him that chance. Remember, he had a concussion. A lot of teams didn't want to touch him, and now he's there and he's pulling the strings, and he's a very good guy, and I think he'll do an excellent job at it.
And the tradition continues, by the way, that we have to show the Bob Mason goal every time we talk about Pat LaFontaine.
Yeah, senior advisor to the owner, and that's a real hands-off owner. Yeah, no, Pat LaFontaine's running it. But Bryan Trottier, people say director of player development. Bryan Trottier is like Adam Graves with the Rangers, and people misconstrue that title. He doesn't have much to say about the hockey. That will be Neil Smith's responsibility, and Bryan Trottier will be like a community relations kind of guy and make sure that people come back to the rink.
Any concern about these guys being outside the league for a long time, John?
I don't think so, none whatsoever. Neil Smith's been around the game, and Ted Nolan back in juniors, and that's now in the cap system, that's where you start.
You agree with that, Al?
I have a bit of concern about Ted, but he is a hard-working guy, and he does want it very much, and I think he will work hard at it. But I think it'll be difficult. The game has changed an awful lot since he was here last time.
And he certainly reestablished his profile with the #1 ranking in the Canadian Hockey League and losing that Memorial Cup final to Patrick Roy's Quebec Ramparts.
One of those is the New York Islanders, who began yet another rebuilding phase, hiring Neil Smith as general manager, Ted Nolan as coach, and Pat LaFontaine as a special advisor to the owner.
I'd just like to really state how, I guess words can't describe my feelings about coming here to Long Island, be part of this great franchise. Being out of the game for last 8 years and have a chance to go to Moncton and Brunswick this year in the Quebec Major Junior League, I just really wanted to find out if I still had that passion for coaching, and I think 5 minutes on the job last season, I felt I did.
I'm just so happy to be back with this logo, with this organization. I'm very passionate about it because I started here, I got my opportunity here, and it's amazing life for me to go full circle. It's just, I'm one of the luckiest guys ever.
I'm kind of glad it's a new NHL and coming back in right now, and under the old NHL, I wouldn't know what a trap system was. I didn't even know how to coach it, to tell you the truth. So I'm a type of coach. I love high tempo. I love attack. I love entertaining. I like to see contact.
Okay, guys, good hirings for those three guys to all get back into the game officially. But, boy, is this a dysfunctional family already? Because Ted Nolan said today that it wasn't Neil Smith that hired him, it was the owner. Isn't that a problem?
I want to preface everything I say right now by saying I'm so happy for Neil Smith and for Ted Nolan, because the bottom line is both guys deserve to be in the National Hockey League in responsible positions, so I'm happy about that. But when you look at this, no owner should be hiring a coach before he hires a general manager. You create all kinds of potential problems going forward down the road if, let's say, Ted Nolan doesn't like some of the player procurement that Neil Smith makes. Instead of going to Neil Smith, he goes up to the owner, Charles Wang. That is dysfunctional. It's not acceptable. There's got to be a chain of command within every National Hockey League franchise. It looks to me like there is no chain of command on Long Island.
Well, you're right. It is potentially a dysfunctional situation, but you're absolutely right. The headline on this story is the fact that Neil Smith, who's been out of hockey, out of management in hockey since the New York Rangers let him go, is back in, and that Ted Nolan, a guy who's wanted a job for an awfully long time in the National Hockey League, and even raised the question of whether the reason he wasn't getting job offers or getting a coaching job in the NHL was because of his heritage and his culture. Well, it's good to see both these guys back. And it's going to be interesting, too, because of the whole dynamic with Neil Smith, former New York Ranger general manager, now on Long Island. That'll be good for the New York rivalry, the Battle of New York. It's also good for the National Hockey League. And Ted Nolan will get an opportunity to find out whether he can coach in the new NHL.
And the best early rivalry from a managerial coaching standpoint would be Ottawa and the Islanders. Remember Muckler and Nolan in the big fallout in Buffalo, Muckler and Neil Smith in the big fallout in New York. We'll look forward to their first meeting next fall. That's it for now. Back to you,
Rod. Involved in the media, in the television, on OLN. So he's very up to date on what's going on in the league, and you have to be that. And Neil, I think, will do a great job for the Islanders and give them instant credibility.
And he did some scouting for Anaheim and Pittsburgh while he was away. I'd have a bit of concern about Ted Nolan, only because he's been away so long. He's a dedicated guy, and I'm sure he'll be working very hard, but things do change a lot in the time since he's been out. And if you look at his former haircut, you can see that's one example. But the game has changed tremendously. It's changed in the way you handle your players, in the way you utilize your players, in the way you structure a team, in the way you try and attack, the way you try and defend. And it's going to be quite a learning experience for Ted. Now, he may well be able to do it because he does work very, very hard.
But he had a great year. He had a great year in junior.
The king of the Memorial Cup saw the Wildcats play game after game during the Cup, and they tried to play an up-tempo NHL-style game.
And as I say, I think he'll work hard at it. I think he will be successful, but I think there's going to be a transition period, and he's going to have to be given a little bit of slack.
Islanders will draw on the fact that the Moncton Wildcats were the #1 ranked team in the Canadian Hockey League, and that
today OTR's Up Front with Ted Nolan.
Off the Record with Michael Landsberg is brought to you by the Keg Steakhouse and Bar. For great steaks, good friends, see you tonight.
In a moment, the panel will mete out justice OTR style to LaRock and McTavish and Grimsley. But up front today, Ted Nolan, the new head coach of the New York Islanders, gone from the NHL since 1997. What was the toughest moment over that period of time?
I think that the first couple of years was probably the most difficult time. You're sitting down waiting for the phone to ring and putting the resumes out and calling people, and obviously there was no response. So probably the first couple of years was probably the toughest.
Now, you turned down a one-year offer at the time from the Buffalo Sabres. Did you think, given the success that you had, the Coach of the Year, that there would be other offers out there for you?
Well, I think that's you can never assume anything. I think that's probably one of the most difficult things too. I just assumed I'd get another opportunity. I didn't. But to tell you the truth, Michael, even though those two years are very difficult, the last 8 years are probably the best 8 years of my life. I had a chance to stay home and coach my two boys in hockey, watch them grow, get involved with other things, and find out what's really important in life, and that's the quality of life. So last 8 years was a great 8 years, and I think everything that happens in life for a reason. And if I didn't go to Moncton last year, I certainly wouldn't be here in Long Island today. So I owe a lot to Mr. Irving up in Moncton to give me that opportunity, and now with Mr. Wang here in Long Island to coach the Islanders. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it.
And speaking of being in Moncton at the Memorial Cup, you said that you hadn't got a head coaching job because, quote, I look different, I'm not one of them. That's obviously a serious charge. What did you base that on?
Well, I just based it on it's tough in every walk of life. I mean, I think it's tough in your field when you don't go to the same schools as everybody else. When you look a little different, it's always tough to get in. When you don't look like the other kids in the schoolyard, it's tough to fit into a group. And that's all I said. I never said it was racism. I just where I grew up and the situation I came from, it was a little bit different. That's all. And it's tough to get in. And but anyways, I'm just that's water under the bridge now, and I'm really looking forward to coaching the New York Islanders and doing some damage down here.
Racism is something that people almost never talk about, but what everybody has talked about is the rumor that you went behind John Muckler's back when you were coaching in Buffalo. Did you make a mistake in Buffalo in how you handled things?
No, I never went behind anybody's back, and probably the most difficult time over the last 8 years and that 2 years was listening to all the rumors that were out there, and that was probably the most difficult part. But I never ever once went behind anybody's back, whether it was as a player, as a coach, or even as a human being on the street.
So you heard all those rumors all the time that you went above John Muckler, and Muckler is a powerful guy in the National Hockey League, and his influence prevented other GMs from hiring you. You heard all of that?
I heard not only that rumor, but some other nasty rumors that were out there. And like I said, when I was going through that dark period of time, the 2 years period, I think that was the hardest part. I have two young boys at the time. They were reading this stuff on the internet that were totally false and totally untrue. And that was hard, and you try to explain to the people that don't know you, but after a while you say, hey, those things are going to happen. People are going to say what they have. But my true friends, my family knew exactly who I was, and if it wasn't for the love of my family and great support of my friends to get through that period, I probably wouldn't have got through it alone.
Well, we're thrilled that you made it through it, and you now become a National Hockey League coach, and you can forget about the politics. So let's talk about the game. The game has changed actually a few times since you last coached in the NHL. How are you going to be a different coach now than you were back in 1997 with the Sabres?
Well, I think I'm, as weird as this may sound, I think I'm a better coach now than I was back in '97. And new NHL, I love it. The one thing when I did coach in the past, there was a thing called the trap. That's one system that I never learned how to do, and I never tried to implement it. And I wasn't a big, strong believer. I thought it stifled our game. It bored our fans out of the rink. And now to see the new NHL, there's hardly no trapping at all. It's free-flowing, it's passing, it's skill, it's quickness. So new NHL is perfect, and to fit right back into this situation, coming into New York with Neil Smith, it's going to be a lot of fun.
So your plan then with the New York Islanders, the Ted Nolan philosophy would be we're going to score goals, we're going to run and gun, and we're going to entertain?
Well, yeah, definitely. My philosophy in hockey has always been score one more goal in the other team, and you have a good chance of winning. So it's entertaining hockey, and I want to have some compassion into the game, and make the fans of Long Island want to come to the rink to see us play and feel that they were entertained by our team.
What's your take on the Stanley Cup final? Are the Edmonton Oilers still alive? Can they come back and win this thing? Because I'll throw it out there by saying that you are known as a great motivator, and it will take a lot of motivation to do that.
And McTavish is doing the same thing up in Edmonton. He's doing a great job this year. And you look at the San Jose situation, they went down 2-0 there going back home. And the one thing with the fans up in Edmonton, they've been just great. And I'm quite sure they're going to be the sixth man on the ice here tonight. So Edmonton's far but done.
Thanks for doing this, Ted. Before you're done, let me first of all get a commitment from you. Will you stick around for next question? We got to reminisce about our first ever off the record.
One time. Sure, Michael.
Ted Nolan's coming up later on, and the panel is coming up next.
Off the record.
Let's get her going. I'm ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it's BS.
Next question.
Sit down and shut up.
You must be mad.
I'm extremely mad.
Next question with Ted Nolan, first OTR guest ever. The way viewers heard it, I asked, are you mad? But I asked it another way, and management said stop tape. Do you remember what word I used?
I think you said pissed.
You are correct. Do you remember who you were a guest with on that first show?
Yes, I do. It was Kim Mitchell.
It was. Who has the worst name in hockey, Miroslav Shatan or Charles Wang?
I love Charles Wang's name.
He gave you a job, so you're loving it right now.
It's Wang.
It's Wang. There you go. You have coached in Buffalo and Moncton, but said no to Tampa Bay. Do you hate sunshine?
It was just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Who won the Yashin trade, the Islanders or the Senators?
Next question.
Have you benched Alexei Yashin yet?
I'm going to meet him tomorrow, so I look forward to that.
If you are awarded the Jack Adams Trophy again, will you decline?
Next question.
What will get a coach fired first, a losing season or winning the Jack Adams Award? It seems to be a curse.
It should be a losing season.
Did the Islanders make a mistake getting rid of Peter Laviolette?
Peter's a very fine coach, and he's doing a great job right now.
If you coach the Oilers, who would you start in goal for game number 3?
Man, that's a tough call.
Would you go back to Markkanen?
The next question.
Do you think the Senators should bring back Dominik Hasek?
He's a very good goalie.
Does Patrick Waugh deserve to be a head coach in the National Hockey League?
Patrick's very competitive.
Be honest with me now before we're done. Did you think OTR would make it 9 seasons?
I thought 9+.
Ted Nolan, a lot of people who know you are just thrilled that you got the job. Thanks for sticking around for this, and congratulations. Good luck.
Thanks, Michael.
Off the record with Michael
overall to the St. Louis Blues. Up next, it's the New York Islanders, Ted Nolan and Neil Smith with their first selection in the new regime from the island.
Well, Neil Smith's the new GM, but he's no stranger to this, of course. He was the director of scouting for the Detroit Red Wings back in '89 when they drafted, among others, Nicholas Lidstrom, Sergei Fedorov, and others. Prior to that, he was a scout for the Islanders, so he's come full circle. Ted Nolan, of course, is the coach. I don't think even the Islanders had any idea as of a couple of days ago who they were going to take.
No, Tony Feltman is the head scout there and the man in the middle between Neil Smith and Ted Nolan, and obviously they've got to work off of his list.
The New York Islanders would like to say hello to all the great hockey fans of the new National Hockey League all over the country and all over Canada and the United States. And especially the great fans back at the Nassau Coliseum watching the draft today. For the New York Islanders' first-round selection, on behalf of Tony Feltrin and the scouting staff, the selection will be made by our new head coach, Ted Nolan.
Thank you. New York Islanders are very proud to select from Des Moines of the USHL right winger Kyle Okposo.
Well, this isn't a surprise. Bob, you had Kyle Okposo ranked 8th overall. He goes 7th to the Islanders.
That's right. He wears number 8, as a matter of fact, and wears it because his favorite player is Alexander Ovechkin. This guy is a bull in a china shop. He is a prototypical power forward, a guy who tore up the United States Hockey League last year for Des Moines, took them from last place to first place, scored 27 goals and 58 points in 50 games. And this guy is a big physical specimen, a solid 6 foot, 195-pounder who loves to hit, but also has the ability to put up some offense. Not an elite offensive player, but a very strong two-way player, Pierre.
I just talked to a scout that works Minnesota and the U.S. Junior Hockey League, and he said Kyle Okposo may be, outside of Nicholas Backstrom, the most physically fit player in this entry draft. And they're just saying one of the things that he'll do for the Islanders is provide that physical dimension that you were talking about, Bob, and they're very, very excited, obviously, with the Islanders, because when you look at Teddy Nolan and the style that he likes to coach, and you look at some of the players who thrived under Teddy Nolan, usually they're physical guys that can really get up and down the ice and pulverize people. And that's what Kyle Okposo is going to bring to the New York Islanders. This is a very solid selection. And that scout also told me if they had that pick, that's the player they would have taken at number 7.
Well, he's off to the University of Minnesota next year. He's from the Twin Cities, so no surprise there. Hometown Minnesota boy off to the University of Minnesota.
So Neil Smith, Ted Nolan, and the new regime on the island have their first-round pick. And now it gets pretty wide open, Bob. Now from here on, it becomes a real crapshoot.
Well, there's still a couple of players on the board that are predictable, and I'll be very surprised if Peter Mueller from the Everett.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Back here with Neil Smith and Ted Nolan. First question is simple. Why Kyle Okposo?
Well, our scouts really like him. He's a big, strong kid. He runs over people. He's a right winger. He's a guy that we talked about a lot, and when it came down to our pick, he was the best player. You know, it's all the same old rhetoric that you hear every year, but our scouts really believe in this guy.
And the way you guys were hired, not typical. You were hired at the same time. It's not like you had a 3-month search for a coach and settled on Ted Nolan. Now that you have had time to sit down and talk together, what is your game plan for rebuilding this team from a coach's point of view, from a GM's point of view?
Well, from the coach's point of view, there's only one way to know how to coach, and that's with some energy. We're in the entertainment business. We certainly want fans of Long Island to really appreciate the effort that the team gives on a daily basis, and above all, we just want players to play as good as they're capable of playing, and sometimes better than they think they can play. So it's going to have some fun, and working here with Neil, I'm really excited about being back in the league, and with Neil's expertise on getting some players and finding some talent and making myself look good, we'll have some fun.
Well, and I think from the management perspective, of course, the league has changed the National Hockey League a lot, and speed and skill is at a premium. But I think the biggest thing is to keep going through the entry draft, building a core. And the teams that build up their best young players are the teams that are going to be the best in the future because they're going to be so valuable.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Up next, the Phoenix Coyotes.
Now, Phoenix has gone off the board a few times. Remember back in 2004, the 5th overall pick, they took Blake.
On Broadway, Mike Sillinger is joining his 12th NHL team, the New York Islanders, signing a 3-year contract worth an average of $2.2 million a year. Last season with St. Louis and Nashville, he had his best ever offensive year with career highs of 32 goals and 63 points. Forward Alan McCauley's now.
How about defenseman Brendan Witt? He's found a new home for at least the next 3 years. Witt agreed to a 3-year deal with the Islanders. Witt had a goal, 13 assists, in 72 games with Nashville and the Washington Capitals last season. Elsewhere,
The Islanders have added some grit up front, signing Chris Simon to a one-year, $1 million deal. The 34-year-old recorded 8 goals and 14 assists with 94 penalty minutes last season in Calgary.
Meanwhile, on Long Island, Dan Flynn and Daniel Lacroix, Ted Nolan's assistants with Moncton, are joining him with the Islanders. The trio reached the Memorial Cup finals this past season.
I'm very passionate about it because I started here, I got my opportunity here, and it's amazing life for me to go full circle.
My goal was to put together a team of people that will work together to continue the efforts made already to bring the Stanley Cup to Long Island.
I'm just so happy to be back with this logo, with this organization.
It was a primetime run even shorter than Joni loves Trottier. Neil Smith didn't love Long Island, and before the New York Islanders could even play a game under his leadership, his tenure as GM is over. He was hired along with new coach Ted Nolan June 8th and fired today. Said Smith, quote, "It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in sports." But maybe he should reevaluate that statement, because how about his replacement? Garth Snow has retired as a player to become the new general manager of the team. Owner Charles Wang said that he spoke with Garth at length throughout the spring about the GM position and was really impressed with the goalie's passion and knowledge. Last season was Snow's 4th with the Isles and 12th in the NHL. He won 135 games in 368 appearances. Unbelievable.
Now, just when you thought that the New York Islanders could not become more farcical, they have. Today, barely a month after they hired him, the Islanders fired Neil Smith as their general manager. A bizarre move to say the least, but here's where it becomes laughable. Garth Snow is his replacement, from goaltender to general manager in one afternoon. And the fallout didn't end there. Pat LaFontaine, following the press conference, resigned as the team's senior advisor.
The most important thing was that if you want to work together as a team, then you got to be together as a team. It isn't one person doing it. I think the conflict was there's and for lack of a better word, traditional GM role. And I think that's where it came apart, where this is my job. I don't want to hear from someone else, as the case may be, and it doesn't work that way. It's a philosophical thing of how we approached our vision of what we wanted to try and do.
Now, Snow has no coaching or managing experience. He joins an already inexperienced front office, which includes head coach Ted Nolan and player development director Bryan Trottier. Snow was initially interviewed for the job, and he ended up losing out to Smith. But now he's the man.
He was one of the finalists. He was one of the people that I was talking to and was considering to do it. That's why it was very quick for us now to decide, because he was one of the finalists to do it.
There's the 3-month probationary period, and then there's the 3-day probation. Bill Belichick lasted a day with the Jets. Wally Backman and George O'Leary lied on their resumes. They didn't last a week. Neil Smith gets a little over a month, and Rudy T was toast with the Lakers after only 43 games.
Well, let's hope he didn't get that logo tattooed anywhere. In a twist almost too bizarre, even for the perennially dysfunctional Islanders, Neil Smith, 40 days into his tenure as general manager, was fired today. Then, as if attempting to upstage itself, the Islanders announced backup goaltender Garth Snow had retired to become the new general manager. 2 moves that were then followed late Tuesday night by the resignation of Pat LaFontaine, who had been serving as the senior advisor to owner Charles Wang for the past couple of months. This, of course, marks the Islanders' first hat trick in almost 8 years. In stating the obvious, which is actually hard to do when discussing the Islanders because the obvious never seems to happen. You see Mike Milbury for that. And Neil Smith admitted his firing was unexpected. He never even was the general manager for an actual game, although he confirmed philosophical differences with Wang in dealing with that group management philosophy was at the heart of this. LaFontaine no longer part of that group. Smith added, "It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in sports." He's not the first person to say that about the New York Islanders in recent years. Smith was very busy in his month and a half at the helm, bringing in a 5-man unit, adding some grit, character, and depth on the blue line, but it's all in the past as far as Neil Smith is concerned. As for what's left standing, now it's Garth Snow running the show, retiring with a year left on his playing contract to become part of this multifaceted management group that no longer includes Pat LaFontaine. Snow goes from potentially playing for new coach Ted Nolan to being his boss Owner Charles Wang said he spoke with Snow at length about the general manager's position this spring, and he really impressed him with his passion and knowledge. Last season was Snow's fourth with the Islanders, replacing Neil Smith as the general manager in what continues to be a bizarre scene.
It didn't work. I take it, I say it didn't work, I'm going to fix it, and I move on. The process will work. We believe in it. We're all working toward it. It's a blip that we're going to overcome, and we move on. This goes back quite a bit, you know, because Garth and I have known Garth a long time here, and it comes with the question I ask a lot of the players, what are you going to do when you grow up? He said, I want to be part of hockey. I want to continue hockey. Well, what do you want to do? Oh, ultimately, I want to do this. I love to own a team. I said, well, you probably don't want to go into hockey first, and you may want to do something else and make some money and then buy a team. But we went through all of that, and you get to know somebody, and that's why I'm very comfortable with the decision.
In other NHL news, the New York Islanders have abruptly fired GM Neil Smith just 40 days after they hired him. Isles owner Charles Wang said Smith told him he had difficulty working within the team's revamped front office. He'll be replaced by Isles' backup goalie Garth Snow, who retired to take the position. Snow, only the third player in NHL history to go from a player 1 year to a GM the next season. After the announcement, senior advisor Pat LaFontaine reportedly resigned. LaFontaine was hired on the same day Smith became GM.
Okay, stay with me on this one. The New York Islanders fired their GM today, the same GM they hired just 40 days ago, and replaced them with their backup goaltender who had to retire before taking the job. Neil Smith is out, Garth Snow is in. The reason? Well, according to team owner Charles Wang, Smith was under the mistaken impression that as GM, he had the final say on hockey decisions.
The most important thing was that if you want to work together as a team, then you got to be together as a team. It isn't one person doing it. I think the conflict was there's and for lack of a better word, traditional GM role. And I think that's where it came apart, where this is my job. I don't want to hear from someone else, as the case may be, and it doesn't work that way. It's a philosophical thing of how we approached our vision of what we wanted to try and do.
Now, since he just retired, you know Garth Snow has no coaching or managing experience. He now joins new head coach Ted Nolan and new player development director Bryan Trottier. Now, Snow was initially interviewed for the job, ended up losing out to Neil Smith.
He was one of the finalists. He was one of the people that I was talking to and was considering to do it. That's why it was very quick for us now to decide, because he was one of the finalists to do it.
The situation got even more bizarre following Wang's news conference. The Canadian press now reporting that senior advisor Pat LaFontaine notified the team that he was resigning from his post. Yes, it is bizarre. Now, here's some other short job.
Time continues. Elliot Friedman of CBC Sports for the vacationing Bob McCown, along with Jeff Blair of the Globe and Mail. And the big hockey story today was supposed to be Michael Pekka signing with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but and while that is big news,
on Toronto, it's
well,
huge.
even in Edmonton, still news because he was there last year, even though they were expecting him to leave.
And he goes right into the Hockey Hall of Fame because he's a Maple Leaf, right?
The people in the rest of the country will love to hear you say that. Then comes the New York Islanders situation, which is really the gong show spot of the National Hockey League right now, where Neil Smith, without even being the general manager for so much as one game, is fired. He was contacted by our producer Mike Gentile today and said he couldn't talk about it because there were legal issues. Garth Snow, whose contract, I think, although I don't have complete confirmation, I think will still count against the Islanders' salary cap because he signed it when he was older than 35, although apparently he could claim he's injured, which might get it off the cap. There's some question about it. He's now the GM. I mean, could it get any stranger? And the guy who's got to try and piece this all together for the New York Post is Evan Grossman. Evan, interesting day today?
Yeah, that's an understatement. It's certainly another wacky day in what's becoming a whole long line of them here on Long Island. It's when the news broke and I started to find out what was going on, and I was talking to people around the league, and I told them what had happened. They were checking the calendar and they were thinking, it's got to be April 1st. This has got to be a joke. There's no way that this is actually happening. And reporting right now that it's very real. Neil Smith was fired today. Garth Snow is hung up the goalie pads, and he's the new GM of the Islanders. Very interesting day, to say the least.
Now, Charles Wang had his press conference this afternoon. What did he say?
He said basically the same thing that you guys got in that press release in his statement, that there were fundamental differences in philosophy. Neil had come to him on several occasions, despite the fact that he knew coming in what the situation was going to be with this quote-unquote board of directors and GM by committee type of atmosphere that Charles Wang was going to create with the team. And he went to him several occasions and voiced his displeasure with sort of kind of being pushed to the corner as part of this grand committee that also included Bryan, Trottier, Pat LaFontaine, Ted Nolan, the coach, Mike Milbury, the former GM, and then at the head of the table, of course, Charles Wang. He didn't think it was going to work. He voiced his displeasure several times in the last 6 weeks, and then Charles came to the conclusion that he just was not good for the group. He was the bad apple, and they needed to make a change before they went any further. This isn't something they wanted to do during the season, of course, because, for obvious reasons, it would have really thrown the team off track. So as soon as they figured that there was a problem, they did something about it. And Wang came out today and said, look, I hired him. It was my mistake. It's on me. We hired the wrong person, and there it is. Garth is the new GM of the team.
Evan, have you had a chance to talk to Ted Nolan, and what does he think about this?
I haven't had a chance yet, but certainly one aspect that's going to come up invariably is, Ted Nolan was hired by the Islanders 6 weeks ago. He was hired independently from Neil Smith. Generally the GM is given the opportunity to hire the coach and all that. He was hired independently, and they were both introduced in the same press conference. And when, all this time that Ted Nolan wasn't involved in the NHL, he was always called the GM killer. He always had a difference of opinion in Buffalo. And I'm sure that, that's going to come up here. Obviously, they were butting heads on this grand committee that they had. I heard from a source that Neil was differing in opinion with guys like Pat LaFontaine. So, if he's quarreling with Pat LaFontaine, I'm sure that the other headstrong members of the group are also kind of butting heads with Neil, and they just threw up their hands and ended it before it got any worse or went any further.
Evan Grossman, the New York Post, is our guest today on the craziness that is enveloping the New York Islanders, the latest bout. And I think, though, that Ted Nolan and Neil Smith had met before they officially got hired, and I think they kind of said, we both kind of need each other here because this could be our last chances. And I'd be surprised if that one unraveled so quickly. Evan, the one, though, that I think a lot of people around the league are wondering about is the relationship between Charles Wang and Alexei Yashin. I mean, I was hearing stories during the Stanley Cup Final that these guys are playing basketball together and have become close friends, and Yashin's got a lot of control over what the team is doing.
Yeah, they have a very close relationship, which, number one, I don't think it's healthy for the team for a player like Yashin, who's questioned so often as far as his effort, determination, overall skill level, being worth the monumental contract that Charles Wang gave him. That wasn't even Milbury. That was Wang's contract, the 10 years, $89 million that he signed. So I think it's an unhealthy relationship. You never want to have a player in the room have the owner's ear the way that Yashin has it. And I was really surprised when they didn't buy him out. When they had, the 15-day period last month, that they could have bought out Yashin's remaining 5 years on his contract. And I had asked Charles about it, and he said, we're not ruling it. This is before they had the opportunity to buy him out. He said, we're not ruling anything out, but Yashin, we think there's potential there. And I stopped him right there and I said, it doesn't sound to me like that you're seriously considering buying him out just by what you're saying. And it turns out we were right. There was no intention of buying Yashin out, and now it's apparently it's apparent why he wasn't. Obviously he has a close relationship with the owner. I don't know. I could see off the ice. He's an interesting person. Yashin is. he's into things that, other hockey players might not be into, the kinds of music that he listens to, being into the arts and all that. And off the ice, I could see, maybe Charles would have this friendship with him, but, he's there for what he does on the ice. And if you talk to anybody who is cut, traded, or, is not qualified again, by the Islanders, everybody says, even when Milbury was there, they said there's two guys that have to go. One is Milbury, the other is Yashin. Well, Milbury's gone, but Yashin's there, and there's a large group, there's a large number of people around the league that think that the Islanders will never be successful with Yashin, on the team, and to have such a close relationship, to have the owner's ear the way he does, it's probably counterproductive. But that's the way things are right now on Long Island.
I could see one Canadian city like the nation's capital that would certainly agree with you there, Evan. Michael Pekka. Yeah, that's the one.
What do you ever do to those Ottawans?
Michael Pekka signed today in Toronto for 1 year and $2.5 million. I think there were a lot of people wondering if he would go back to New York, and reportedly there was a 3-year, $7.5 million offer to go to New York. Do you think that Pekka's potential return there was scuttled in any way by what is happening inside that organization?
Well, I'm sure it had something to do with it, but also I know for a fact that there was no formal offer made at 3 years at 2.5 each. There was no offer made to Pekka. It was, an interesting scenario, kind of bringing back the former captain, so on and so forth. But the reason they got rid of Pekka in the first place, and Milbury said this when he was GM, was they were setting the table for Yashin to be successful. They were clearing the locker room of any personalities that maybe clashed with Yashin, overshadowed Yashin, or, so quote unquote got in his way of being the best he could be. Pekka was clearly one of those guys. I mean, I'm not picking sides here and saying anybody was wrong, but Pekka was a tremendous leader in that room. He often clashed with Yashin. They have two. They couldn't be from any more opposite ends of the spectrum. Pekka is a fiery guy. Yashin is quiet. Yashin goes about his thing, quietly, and it was a clear sign when they traded Pekka for Mike York before this last season that they were making it Yashin's team. And, Milbury came out and said it and said, the table's been set for Yashin. How many times they're going to set the table for the guy, I'm curious, because this is going to be his third coach there, and that with his close relationship that Yashin has with Wang, that of course he was one of those guys that went in after the 2003 season and said, we have to make a change. I can't play for Peter Laviolette anymore.
And what's Peter Laviolette done since then?
I don't know. Won a Stanley Cup, the Olympics. So you know that they're kicking themselves over that, for letting this guy go. But they continue to spin their tires in the mud here. I think, and if Yashin is pulling strings, that's not good. That's not good for the team. It's not good for the franchise, and it's certainly not good for the guys in the room that he's supposed to be playing with, for, and striving to win a Stanley Cup with. It's just not a healthy environment, I don't think.
So, Evan, if I'm the general manager of another NHL team, who do I call tonight if I want to make a deal with the Islanders or something like that? Who's running the show?
Garth Snow is. You know what? You might be better off just calling Charles Wang, because he said, this is my team. I'm running things, and he's almost. I wrote last season that he was starting to become this George Steinbrenner-like, hands-on. He was very involved in not only line combinations and what they do on the power play, which I think is interesting for someone who doesn't have any experience in this, but everything across the board. He's hands-on. This is my team. And he said it again today, and he said that the GM is responsible for player contracts, trades, and scouting, but at the same time, he says out of the other corner of his mouth that everything comes through me. So I think Garth is in a tough spot here. It's a great opportunity, no question. He's a GM. He's 37 years old. It's a wonderful opportunity for him, but you have to wonder how much of this is going to be him as a yes man for Charles, and that's going to be a big perception among the fan base, season ticket holders, so on and so forth, that, you know, who is really in charge. And if you want to know who's really in charge, he's sitting in the owner's office, because Charles Wang is by far and away the face of the franchise now. He's controlling everything, and you know, I guess, you know, when it comes to be the trade deadline time, you know, and you're looking for quotes from the GM, you know, Snow will be on all the radio programs and all the TV programs, but I don't know how much autonomy. We learned this from Neil. The GM doesn't have any autonomy with the Islanders anymore. It's now this group of, you know, of advisors and experts and former players and alumni that's, you know, that's calling the shots. And so that's who's in charge of the Islanders. If you want to talk about, you know, moves and stuff that they're making, you may as well just call the owner.
Evan, look forward to reading about your story about it in the Post tomorrow. Thanks a lot for your time.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Evan Grossman of the New York Post. He covers the Islanders, and what a mess. A great franchise, and wow, what a mess. There is no nice way to break down what's happening with that organization right now. None.
I think Neil Smith may be getting out, may be lucky right now. He may be getting out of the insane asylum early.
And the people in Ottawa who heard that interview about Yashin being the guy who's got so much control, they're probably howling up there in the nation's capital. Let's take the break. When we come back, Larry Starr.
Snow's first day on the job as general manager of the New York Islanders featured an expected move. The club re-upping goaltender Wade Dublowitz, a Saskatoon product, who spent a majority of last season in the American Hockey League in the Islanders system. He likely now has the inside track on filling Snow's spot as backup to Rick DiPietro. Now that Garth has moved upstairs, or has he? Has he moved his office upstairs or into the air conditioning room?
It's an opportunity I've dreamt about since college. I was never really a highly touted hockey player, and this is what I always wanted to do, was be a manager of a team. But the Islander organization, to me, is like a family. We're going to have a great time, and we're going to win a championship. If it's the last thing I can help in my role with the team.
It's a team. We surround him with good people. He has a passion for the game. Very smart guy. And I've worked with him for a long time. There's an integrity, a trust there. And that's what you want to do. You want to build a team that you believe in, that will all be pushing the same way.
Season began. Now the bizarre saga continues in Long Island after firing his GM and now losing his special advisor, Pat LaFontaine. Islanders owner Charles Wang spoke to the media Wednesday, seemingly unfazed by the upheaval.
Beautiful day. And I got a call last night from Patty, okay, and he told me, explained to me what it is. We'll continue to work together and so forth. He didn't want that kind of role and so forth. We move on. Patty was an advisor to me. Okay, and he gave me advice and so forth. Like, you know, you go to, you know, I go to different people that you have respect for. You listen to advice, or you don't, and you decide and you go on.
Meanwhile, Garth Snow was introduced as the Isles GM one day after retiring as the team's backup, and says becoming a GM is actually a dream come true.
I was never really a highly touted hockey player, and this is what I always wanted to do, was be a manager of a team. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. We're going to have a great time, and we're going to win a championship. If it's the last thing I can help in my role with the team.
Snow actually made his first move on Wednesday, replacing himself in goal by re-signing 27-year-old Wade Dublowitz to a one-year deal.
Good moves. Speaking of,
he brings with us a kind of a passion for the game that is really unbelievable. And as you get to know him, you'll see that passion reflected in the things he do. With that, I'd like to welcome Garth Snow, our new general manager.
Charles Wang's handling of the Islanders has been very Steinbrenner-ish this week, but the reactionary firings and the non-traditional style also brings back memories of a former owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, making Hockey Central's Gord Stellick the perfect guy to discuss this week's wild ride on the island. Here's Brad Fay.
Gord Stellick, help me out. It sounded like they introduced Garth Snow as the new GM of the New York Islanders. What's going on in Long Island? This was the proudest franchise in the NHL in the first part of the 1980s. It's a long way from that.
Well, it's 20 years ago since they're the proudest franchise in the National Hockey League back then. But I'll tell you one thing is, you know, the guy, I give the owner credit in the sense he's saying, I made a mistake. He's like George Steinbrenner. Just watch what the New York Yankees do. Neil Smith was supposed to be like Brian Cashman. Neil Smith did not understand the rules as outlined by the owner, so Neil Smith is gone. Ever since Wayne Gretzky was sold to the LA Kings, the owners can do what they want. This guy decided he wanted Garth Snow. I got to acknowledge, a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, exactly. The backup goaltender coming in, and the timing, I guess they've given themselves enough time to get things in order. But what does Garth Snow, as a player, what does a player know about running a team?
Well, that's a good question. He said, what does a broadcaster know about running a team? But, you know, a lot of it comes by the people he listens to, and there is a good support staff there. He is inexperienced. The other part is he is, as far as a general manager goes, not really in charge of the dressing room. Neil Smith found that out. Ted Nolan is the owner's guy. I mean, that's who he hired first. So I think it's not a bad situation for Garth Snow to get in. Bobby Clark had it in Philadelphia. He had Keith Allen and those guys around him when he went there. So, in essence, it's a surprise. But here's a guy that's well-read in the collective bargaining agreement, a bright guy, and if he does that and try not to spit too high. I mean, come on, he's following Mike Milbury. Give me a break.
You can't wear the hanger into the
no,
clothes
you can't.
anymore.
That's...
I had Belfour might have thought, what's could have been the...
Welcome back. NHL news for you. An arbitrator has awarded Islanders forward Mike York a $2.85 million contract for the upcoming season. The 28-year-old had 13 goals, 39 assists during his first year on Long Island, and he began his career with the Rangers in 1999.
I have no doubt
Predators...
Bettman will weigh in. Bettman already has a case involving an ex-general manager before him. Former New York Islanders GM Neil Smith hasn't been paid since early June, and it's expected his legal team will file papers with the NHL head office this week in order to orchestrate a hearing to determine the outcome in his battle for compensation. All this drama with training camp now just around the corner. For SportsCenter, I'm Darren Dreger.
Deal of a lifetime.
I want to retire as an Islander. I want this to be my last contract.
The Islanders signed goaltender Rick DiPietro to a 15-year contract, sending shockwaves throughout the hockey world.
A big part of putting that tag on you is being on a winning team.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to SportsCenter. He's Darren Detition. I am Jennifer Hedger. And, you know, Darren, Charles Wang has distinguished himself as being one of the most unique hockey people probably in the history of the NHL, and he has solidified that reputation today, Dutch.
You know what? You're being awfully polite. Yeah, the New York Islanders have had themselves a whale of an offseason. Just when you thought that the Islanders couldn't be any more inane, they go and trump themselves. Today they signed goaltender Rick DiPietro to an incredulous 15-year contract worth $4.5 million per year. Now, clearly, they did not learn from Alexei Yashin's 10-year contractual debacle, because this deal makes no sense whatsoever. It is not a contract, but an albatross that's going to hang over the Islanders' head and their salary cap for the next decade and a half. DiPietro would be 40 if the contract went to the full length of the term.
You know, when I first got drafted, I mean, people said he was crazy for taking a goalie first overall, and I'm sure people are saying he's crazy now for giving me a 15-year deal. But, you know, just from the beginning, getting to know him as a person, more of a person than an owner, we've, you know, kind of forged a bit of a friendship here.
Now, last season, DiPietro went 30-24-5. He ranked 32nd amongst goalies with a 3.02 goals against average. He was 24th with a .900 save percentage. A lot of people are questioning the length of the deal.
I don't know. We have to do what we believe is best for the franchise and for the fans. And we believe certainly having Rick with us long term, because if you add the 15 years to my age now, I'll be 47 by then when he retires, and that's a long time from now. So.
I don't expect it's going to begin a trend. You know, I don't want to comment too much on what other teams are doing, but I don't believe you'll see any 15-year deals here in the very near future.
The key to a star player, or to a top player, a big part of putting that tag on you is being on a winning team. I don't know as a player that, quite honest, that I'd want to put myself in a position where I didn't know I was on a top team for a long time.
Now, long deals are hardly ever served in full. The longest contract on record was Steve Young's 43-year deal with the LA Express of the USFL back in the 80s. The league folded after just 4 years. Magic Johnson had a 25-year deal with the Lakers, a deal that would have just expired. Alexei Yashin, who I mentioned, is in the middle of a 10-year deal with the Islanders. Alex Rodriguez are more than halfway through his 10-year, $250 million deal. Although what also sticks out is the quality of players. Steve Young, Hall of Famer. Magic Johnson, Hall of Famer. A-Rod, guaranteed Hall of Famer. Alexei Yashin, maybe the Russian Hockey Hall of Fame. Well, the jury is still out on Rick DiPietro.
Well, thankfully, Rick DiPietro said it himself that, yes, in fact, people do think Charles Wang is crazy for giving his 25-year-old unproven netminder a 15-year contract. Well, Darren Dreger spoke to some of those people today, and as you'll see in the TSN Insider, if NHL GMs brought this to tribal council, Charles Wang would be voted off the island.
TSN conducted an informal poll of several NHL general managers with one simple question asked. Does the Rick DiPietro deal make sense? Well, none is the unanimous response, with one manager adding he's untradeable now. It's widely speculated Islanders owner Charles Wang has a soft spot for this unproven goaltender, and in this case, that seems evident. That preferential treatment may have played a role as well in the dismissal of Neil Smith as the team's general manager. It was Smith's intent to run a hard negotiation with the DiPietro camp. With a 1- or 2-year deal delivering the message, the former first pick overall would have to prove his play deserved the longer term and more than the $2.5 million he made last season. That's not the negotiation Charles Wang allegedly had in mind. Sources say it was Wang, not Garth Snow, the Islanders' current GM, who brokered this staggering contract. It's also believed Rick DiPietro handled the majority of the discussion on his end. What is more bizarre is the fact the Islanders literally controlled DiPietro's fate. He didn't sign his qualifying offer and inexplicably didn't file for salary arbitration. The Islanders could have, and the Islanders should have squeezed. Instead, a good hockey man is left without a job. And a 24-year-old goaltender with 5 years of NHL experience and 6 playoff games under his belt will spend a good portion of his career trying to live up to a contract that doesn't make sense. For SportsCenter, I'm Darren Dreger.
Okay, this just in. The New York Islanders have decided to go back to their old Captain Highlander logo. Okay, that's not true, but with the way things are going in Uniondale recently, no one would be surprised if the worst emblem in the history of pro sports made a return. First, it was the dismissal of GM Neil Smith after just 40 days on the job. His unlikely replacement, none other than backup goalie Garth Snow. And now this. Isles owner Charles Wang has re-signed netminder Rick DiPietro. Not a big deal until you hear the terms. 15 years. 15 years, $67.5 million.
You know, obviously, the first person I need to thank is Mr. Wang. Really appreciate giving me the opportunity to spend the rest of my career here on Long Island.
And no kidding, the deal is the longest in NHL history, topping the $87.5 million 10-year contract the Islanders gave Alexei Yashin in 2001. The contract guaranteed, and DiPietro will be paid in full should he retire because of injury. If he ends his career in any other fashion before the deal expires, he would forfeit the remaining
15
dollars.
years seems like a long time. It is a long time, but to find a home, to find a place where I felt comfortable and I could succeed, and from day one, with the help of Charles and my teammates and the whole staff, I feel like I've truly found a home.
We have to do what we believe is best for the franchise and for the fans, and we believe certainly having Rick with us long term, because if you add the 15 years to my age now, I'll be 47 by then when he retires, and that's a long time from now.
One thing Charles Wang is a pretty loyal guy, so if he likes somebody, he's going to lock him up long term, and Ricky's a great guy to have in any organization, so I'm not surprised. I know they tried to get that deal done last year, and it was denied by the league, but somehow they found a way to get it through.
All right, you knew this poll question was coming. What's the worst move the New York Islanders have made in the last year? Signing Rick DiPietro to that 15-year deal, firing Neil Smith as GM just months after hiring him, in fact, just 40 days, like I said, after hiring him, or hiring Garth Snow as GM to replace Neil Smith. You want to take part?
More action from the Islanders front office. The club signed Viktor Kozlov to a 1-year contract worth $865,000. The 31-year-old tallied 12 goals and 13 assists in 69 games last year with the Devils. The Islanders also announced that goaltender Mike Dunham will attend training camp on a tryout basis. Dunham was limited to just 17 games last season with the Thrashers due to a groin injury.